Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Layla, and for today's video, I'm going to share with y'all some recent financial stats. Now, to be honest, I don't think there's really a purpose to this video aside from just sharing these stats with you. I have filmed a video like this before, maybe a couple of them, and I just think it's interesting to check in on the recent financial statistics like every year or so. And so I wrote down a few that really stood out to me and what I wanted to share with y'all. These make me really upset because I know that y'all watching this probably don't fall into these statistics. And what makes me sad is that the people who really should be watching these videos are not watching these videos. You know, maybe not this video, but my other ones. Or the people who really need help are not watching financial content because honestly, the bulk of the United States needs financial help. And it's so upsetting that they'll never do that or they will do it too late in their lifetime. So yeah, these stats are related to the United States. These are basically from 2022 as well as 2023 a little bit. Down below, I will link the website where I got these from. Now with these statistics, I wouldn't say it's 100% correct or anything just because who knows where exactly it's just not covering every single area possible. But it's still just interesting to look at and does kind of just give us an idea of where things stand currently. So I'm just gonna kind of read through these and maybe give my initial thoughts on each of them. Okay, the first one, 68% of Americans say they would be worried to cover their living expenses for a month if they lost their primary source of income. That's a lot of people. I think a lot of people who even watch my videos would fall into that category because first of all, almost 70%, that's a big percentage. The other thing is that I think most people, or probably about 70%, only have one source of income. And this is why I love having multiple sources of income. It's something I have always been working toward, and it has taken years of dedication and effort to get to the point where I'm at now. But I love the security of having multiple sources of income. And there's kind of two problems here. So it says that they would be worried to cover their living expenses for a month if they lost their primary sources of income. So that means for 1 month, they don't have enough savings for 1 month of living expenses. The other thing is that they have no other backup income. Now, I know that if I were to lose my job today, obviously I'm not wishing that on myself or anybody, we're not putting that out there, but if that were to happen, I would be okay because I have YouTube income to fall back on, affiliate sales, coaching, and I, of course, would probably start applying to other places and stuff, but I know that I would be okay for some time. Not only because of the extra sources of income that I have, but I also have quite a bit saved up in my emergency fund that I would be able to hold myself up with just that alone for several months. That takes some time to get to, so I think it's important if you are in this statistic for you to just work toward that. I know for a lot of people, like side hustles, people don't want to do side hustles. Working should be enough, but unfortunately in America, it's just not enough. I know for myself, I more so am doing it because it does help me financially, of course, but for me, I want to build a business on the side so that I can have a business full-time instead of working for somebody else. But for many people, having a side hustle or trying to build a business on the side, it is necessary because their full-time job does not cover everything that they need to cover. So they're driving for DoorDash or picking up a part-time job or just trying to become some form of content creator. So yeah, I know that this statistic in and of itself kind of is covering a lot of things. So it's an interesting one. Next up, 36% of people have more credit card debt than they have emergency savings. And I'm going to take this a little bit further because of those 36% of people, they broke it down by generation. So this changes to 45% of millennials have more credit card debt than they do emergency savings. 44% of Gen X, so close behind millennials, just 1% less of Gen X have more credit card debt than emergency savings. 38% of Gen Z and 25% of baby boomers. That 25% for baby boomers is a bit concerning just because at that point, the baby boomers are they're about to go into retirement age or they're in retirement age. And ideally, you would not have debt at that point in your life. But unfortunately, looks like about 1/4 of baby boomers do, and that's probably fairly accurate. And that's only credit card debt. I don't know if they looked into like personal loans and mortgages and stuff like that. I'm sure it gets even worse if we look into that. I'm sad to see that 45% of millennials have more credit card debt than emergency savings, but that makes sense just because I feel like, you know, being a millennial, I'm very grateful for where I'm at this point, but it looks very different than, you know, what it looks like for my parents at this age. It's just not the same. We have been through a lot more, and even Gen Z, y'all are doing pretty good, a little bit better than the rest of us, but it's just interesting to see how it changes. Like millennials are worse off than Gen Z, but it's because of our generations. Like there's a lot of things that have happened in our lifetime that has affected our finances, and we don't have control of those things. But yeah, that's a real bummer. Hopefully that changes soon and people are able to increase their savings versus having more credit card debt. Next, in 2021, okay, so this is a stat from 2021, 49% of American households with an annual income of less than $30,000 have no emergency fund. That makes a lot of sense to me that they would not have an emergency fund. Several years ago, when I was making less than $30,000, I had a lot of debt as well. So for sure, I was not able to save. And if I did save, something else would pop up and I would have to use all of my emergency fund, or I would go into further debt even if I had an emergency fund. So it was like, there was just no hope, you know, it was like getting a beating after beating. So you would save up some, but then have to use it and then just find yourself in a worse situation. So it was extremely frustrating. And I can definitely understand that. They also said that 14% of households with incomes of $75,000 or more have no emergency fund. And that is, obviously that percentage is a little bit lower, but that is not good. If you're making 75K, it depends on where you live, of course. But I think at that point, you should definitely start being able to clean up your finances a little bit and put some money aside so that you do have an emergency fund. That's amazing for the 50% of people or so who make less than $30,000 that do have an emergency fund. That's amazing. Congrats to y'all, because that's tough, especially just depending on your situation. If you have children or if something has come up in your life, it's really tough to come up with savings. Next, the average amount of debt of U.S. consumers for 2022 is $22,354. Going along with that, about 32% of people's monthly income goes to paying debt other than mortgages. That is crazy. It's so upsetting. I would say that this is probably cars. I mean, we see with all of these like subscriber financial reviews and the Reddit videos that I've made that people have insane car payments. So if your car payment is like $700, $500, there are some people who are paying even more than $700 per month for a car payment. But then if they have their mortgage, it could be like $1,000. That is crazy to be paying $750 for your car and then $1,000 on your mortgage, you know? So I would say a lot of it is that. And then credit card debt, just going into credit card debt is so easy if you have access to spending money. Many people don't have control and just spend money. The average amount of debt being $22,000 doesn't sound so bad, but I think there's a lot of outliers here. I'm not sure if they account for that and, you know, remove the outliers, but there's so many people with much more debt than $22,000. And then on the other side of that, there's some people who have no debt, you know. So I'd be interested in seeing a little bit more. I don't know if it was on the website. I would have to dig into it, but it would be nice to see how exactly they got that number, like what it's made up of. But I'm thinking just like credit card debt and car debt. This doesn't even go into student loans, I don't think. Definitely not mortgages. Okay, and let's talk about one more. So 61% of US consumers live paycheck to paycheck as of April 2022. And that's just general, an average for all Americans. Now, they broke it down by income. So this is so upsetting to me. 61% is already high, right? It makes sense to be paycheck to paycheck if you have a low income or if you're below the poverty line. But 36% of people who make between $100,000 to $150,000 per year are living paycheck to paycheck. That's just so upsetting. And these are the people, the high income earners, that I wish would be watching these videos, you know? Like all these numbers I'm about to go through, because there's people who make more than that, of course. So hold on, let's go through these. 31% of people making between $150,000 and $200,000 are living paycheck to paycheck. 26% when we get to $200,000 to $250,000 per year, and 24% of people making over $250,000 a year. Oftentimes, when you're earning a higher income, your peers are earning a higher income as well, or you feel like because you're earning a higher income, or it's oftentimes people who are like doctors or lawyers, things like that, they feel like they have to live up to a certain standard, or they worked hard for so many years going to school and studying all of that stuff, being in residency, barely making any money, so that when they finish, they feel like they deserve to live a life of luxury. So then they just spend way too much money and end up living paycheck to paycheck. When you have to restrict yourself for so long by being in school and earning a low income in residency and things like that, it can be tough to find the patience, you know? Like once you start making money, you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna buy it all now. A lot of times people who feel, if you feel cooped up, like for example, doing a low spend year or a no spend year is not good for a lot of people, because when you restrict yourself for so long, it's kind of like never eating junk food, but then once that junk food is in front of you, you just eat it all. So same idea with income. And definitely lifestyle creep. So somebody who is seeing their income increase every single year, they're like, oh, now I can afford that car, I can go on that vacation, I'm gonna buy a house that has 10 bedrooms, and they can usually afford it. People can afford the monthly payments for those things, but it puts you in a situation where you're like house poor, or you are living paycheck to paycheck because now your mortgage is $5,000 a month, and already that's a big chunk of your income. Overall, these stats are very interesting. Hopefully none of y'all fall into them, but if you do, that is okay. You are here, you're learning about finances, and hopefully sometime in the near future you can read the current stats and not fit into those, because oftentimes they are pretty negative. But if you fit into any of those and you're looking for some guidance, feel free to email me, send me your financial situation, and I can do my weekly subscriber financial review for you. Or if you want to work with me one-on-one, that is an option as well. Comment down below what you think of these financial stats, or feel free to share something else that you find out there. Otherwise, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next one.